From the heart of our nation's capital, here's Family Research Council President Tony Perkins.
Joining me now is Republican Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, who serves on the Judiciary Committee, the Armed Services Committee, Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, and the Small Business and Entrepreneur Committee, and is on the Special Committee on Aging. Senator, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thanks so much for having me.
Now, you just returned from a trip to Hong Kong. What did you see firsthand?
Well, what I saw is that it is becoming a police state, Tony. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. This is a city of 7.5 million people that is united in protests against communist Beijing's attempt to take away their basic rights. But what's happening is that the Beijing-controlled government is suspending their right to protest. They are using the police force to violently put down protesters, to attack protesters. They are end-running, the chief executive is end-running the legislature to bring in anti-protest measures, and the people of Hong Kong have no say over any of this. It really is an urgent moment for Hong Kong and I think for the world.
All right, Senator, I want to play a short clip of what Carrie Lam had to say yesterday about your visit and allow you to respond to it. Play the clip with Carrie Lam.
As far as individual U.S. senators coming to Hong Kong, meeting with a lot of people and making comments, I have to say that I thought their visit to Hong Kong will enable them to see the actual situation in a comprehensive and objective manner. But unfortunately, the feedback that I've got is most of them, or several of them, coming here, they have very preconceived views about Hong Kong's situation. That's why for this particular senator to describe Hong Kong as becoming a police state is totally irresponsible and unfounded. The Hong Kong police force is a highly professional and civilized force. I would challenge every politician to ask themselves if the large extent of violence act and all those petrol bombs and arson and attacks, deadly attacks on policemen happened in their own country, what would they do? What would their policemen do? So my simple response is to describe Hong Kong as a police state is totally unfounded.
Senator, your response?
It seems like we touched a nerve, doesn't it? I mean, the truth is for her to say this when she is an unelected puppet of Beijing. You know, if she wanted to prove that she's actually accountable to the people, that the police force that she directs is accountable to the people, submit to a vote. Give the people of Hong Kong the right to vote on her as their chief executive. Give the people of Hong Kong some meaningful oversight of the police. But in fact, there is none. The police are able to do whatever they want to do. The government has taken steps to ensure that every everyday citizens can't bring, for instance, suits against the police when there's violence, and they have no say in the management of the city or in the management of the executive or the police. And Carrie Lam is a Beijing puppet, and she's taking Hong Kong towards a police state.
Now, are you concerned about the threats that the Chinese President Xi Jinping is making?
Yeah, I mean, he said, Tony, that anybody who tried to, in his words, interfere with Hong Kong, I mean, that there would be broken bones, that would be ground to powder. It's very violent rhetoric. Again, I think it shows actually the weakness of Beijing, that Beijing is desperately afraid that people will stand up to them. And this is why they're trying to censor Americans. Let's not lose sight here that Beijing is, the Communist Party of China is trying to censor American speech. They're trying to make the NBA a part of their propaganda machine. They're trying to make Apple a part of their propaganda operation. They're trying to bully us into being quiet. And that's why I went to Hong Kong, because I said, I'm not going to be bullied. I'm going to go see for myself. I'm going to go out to the streets myself, which I did, and to see what the facts are.
You mentioned NBA. You mentioned Apple. Speak to that. I mean, we've seen the NBA in full retreat mode when it comes to China. Almost, I mean, it kowtowing to the threats of China. When you've got these people in Hong Kong that are simply doing what every American would like to do, or has the benefit of enjoying freedom. They just want freedom.
It's terrible to see all of these corporations and the NBA at the top of the list put their own monetary interests. It's just about making money. I mean, let's be honest. That's what the NBA is most interested in. If they have to sell out America and American values to do it, then they're unfortunately happy to do it. And that's just wrong, Tony, and it's sad. And, the NBA ought to have a little backbone. I mean, they ought to remember that they are an American organization, at least they used to be, and they ought to start acting like Americans, which is that we don't bow down to dictators. We don't salute and take orders from communists. And when Beijing told them that they ought to go out there and they couldn't say anything about Hong Kong and that they needed to silence themselves, the NBA should have said, take a hike. They should have said, we're canceling all of the exhibition games in China until the Hong Kong situation is peacefully resolved. But they're not willing to do that. And listen, this is just the beginning, because this is how Beijing does business. They use their commercial leverage to try to impose censorship on Americans and American companies to try to make American corporations part of their propaganda machine, and they're just going to keep doing it.
And the only counter leverage to that, I mean, we've seen this with Hollywood. Hollywood's doing it. We see the NBA doing it. I mean, selling out, as you said, American values and ideals. And even worse than that, all right, because I know you got, that's one issue. But you have, juxtaposed to that, you have these people in Hong Kong that are looking to America, upholding American freedom, waving American flags as a symbol of freedom. And we have those symbolic institutions of America willing to sell them out in a heartbeat. I think the counter to that is that American consumers need to take that to heart when it comes to making decisions about how they spend their money.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and I think we've got to think about supporting the NBA if this is what they're going to do. I mean, if they're going to kowtow to Beijing, if they're going to become a propaganda mouthpiece for the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, let's not forget that Beijing and Communist China, they have been stealing our jobs for decades. I mean, let's be honest. They've been stealing our trade secrets, our technologies. They've been stealing from our workers. They're trying to build their military on the backs of our middle class. And they have grand designs. I mean, they want to shut up Hong Kong, then they want to dominate Taiwan, they want to dominate the whole region, and they want ultimately America. I mean, they want to beat us. I mean, they are in a competition with us, and they're in it to win it. And our question has got to be: are we willing to stand up and say enough is enough?
Right, and we haven't even touched on the issue of religious persecution
which is
China
huge.
is involved in, and Uyghurs, other religious minorities in concentration camps. And that's really where I almost lose it when it comes to the NBA and the others who are willing to kowtow to these tyrants who are literally abusing, killing, harvesting organs out of people. These people, this is atrocious what is happening.
It is absolutely atrocious. And freedom of religion, can I just say, Hong Kong enjoys freedom of worship. They have freedom of worship. There are a number of faiths represented there, but the church, the Christian church, the Christian community is very vibrant there and very involved in this protest movement, in this freedom movement, which I think is a point of great pride. Exactly right, and that's the thing, is that if Beijing has its way, you better believe the first thing they'll do is get rid of freedom of worship, because there's nothing more threatening to a totalitarian government than the right to worship and the right of conscience, and to say, no government's going to tell me what to believe.
I mean, that's what Hong Kong, the folks in Hong Kong are seeing as they look at this really crackdown in mainland China over religious freedom. So, I mean, they're right to be concerned, because that's exactly what they would get, a loss of religious freedom.
Yes.
Senator, I want to shift gears before we run out of time.